What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about freedom and July 4th. And it's not what you think. We're not going to be talking about everything that happened back in 1776 or the Declaration of Independence or any of these things. We're going to be talking about the freedom of your mind. And I think this topic is now more important than ever, especially with everything that's going on right now in the US and in the world. So let's roll the intro and get right to it. What's up, guys? So my name is Jonathan, and today we're going to be talking about the 4th of July. We're going to be talking about freedom. We're not going to be having a history lesson, though. We're not going to go back and talk about 1776 and anything that happened back then. We're going to be talking about what's happening now and an important and often overlooked freedom that I think we have that we don't even realize we have. And I'll explain to you what I mean by this. The freedom of our minds. This is the freedom to make the decision to think a certain way about something. And I think all too often we exercise this freedom without thought towards it. I think all too often we make a decision about something based on external influences, people who are telling us things about ourselves or the world that we live in, right? And I think a huge factor in this is the news, and now really social media, right? We're flicking through Instagram and we're seeing all sorts of different things. PSA this, and wear a mask, and Black Lives Matter, and all lives matter, and don't wear a mask, and national anthem not being played for the NFL, and all of these very polarizing topics, right? Now, what are we gonna think? What are we gonna decide? I think that a lot of times it's the loudest voice sometimes that we allow to influence and affect us. And then all of a sudden we begin adopting those thoughts, those mindsets. And I think that's incredibly, incredibly dangerous if we don't realize what's actually happening and what we're allowing to happen. Now, this is not just about freedom. This is not just about protests, riots, politics. It's not about any of those things. This is about us realizing that we don't necessarily have to adopt the opinions of others as they're being told to us, right? We don't have to adopt, the identity and the mindset that goes into being a Republican or being a Democrat or, any of these different things. We don't have to just take the information that we're getting from the outside about wearing a mask or all of that. We can do the research for ourselves. We can think critically. We have that responsibility. We have that freedom. And here in the US, we have these incredible freedoms that have been laid out and that people have fought and shed blood over, and all sorts of things, both just and unjust, have happened to bring us here to where we are now. We do have the freedom to protest. We do have the freedom to have our voice be heard. We do have these incredible platforms that we can put out information. But if you're not conscious and very careful about what you let actually impact your mind and change your mindset about things, you can very easily be led along. And in my opinion, that's not necessarily freedom, right? Not having that choice, being kind of unconsciously driven towards one perspective or another, that's not freedom. That's a terrible definition of freedom, right? We want that freedom in our minds. We want the ability to think critically about things, make our own decision, and then go off of that. Not just follow whoever the loudest person in the room is. And I think this is so important. I don't think it's about, Republican or Democrat. I don't think it's about any of the different issues around race or what should or shouldn't be done. This is about each one of us taking personal responsibility to exercise the freedom of our mind, to exercise our skill in critical thinking, right? How do you critically think? Right? Questioning some things that we might assume, questioning assumptions. That's one of the biggest parts of critical thinking. When you make these assumptions, when people tell you things, instead of just immediately assuming they're correct because they've got a title behind their name or because they went to a fancy school or they got elected into some position, really think critically about it. Take the time yourself to go in and research. Don't just take one, news channel's advice. Don't take two news channels' advice. Really look at what the news channels are saying. Compare that to what you can read on the internet, right? We have Google. It's an absolutely incredible environment for learning. And I think that we don't think through these things enough. We don't actively take charge and exercise the freedom that we have in our minds to come to conclusions and form assumptions around things. I think far too often we just let ourselves be influenced by whoever the loudest person in the room is, or the people around us. Just because your mom says something or your dad says something or your aunt and uncle or someone you admire on social media, just because they make some claim or they put themselves in one of these very polarizing camps, regardless of the topic, right? I'm talking about all the topics that are out. It's election year, right, in the US right now. And we have so many different conversations going on around who should be elected president, right? What we should do with police reform, all these different things. Think critically. This is for you to do. This is not for someone to tell you. Don't be led around. You know, there's all of this happening on Instagram that, you know, like people are sheep if they're wearing masks, right? And then the people who are saying you should wear masks are saying, no, that's not right. You know, it's about being conscientious of the people around you. Being sheep is about taking on the opinion of others without fact checking it, taking on those assumptions, taking on points of view that are based on assumptions that you might not necessarily hold, but you respect the other person who's saying it instead of fact checking them, instead of looking into what they're saying a little bit more critically. You're just going with it. And now all of a sudden you are being led around like a sheep. And so I think this topic is something that needs to be talked about more. I think that we need to do our own research. I think that we need to come to our own conclusions. I think we need to turn off social media. I think we need to turn off the news. I think that we need to start doing research about the topics that matter to us and not just joining a side because it's popular or we're just getting a lot of information from one side or the other. I think that we need to do our own work into doing research about different topics, doing research into what's actually happening. What are the statistics, right? With coronavirus, with police brutality, with these different things. Make your own decision. Don't let someone else take a screenshot of some post that was made by some blogger somewhere and let that completely make up your mind about a topic one way or the other. Make your own decision. Go out there and do the work that it takes to come up with your own theory on things. And I think that is the beauty of America. That is what we're able to do here. We're able to not only do all the research and not necessarily have censorship, although there's a lot of that happening right now, unfortunately. But we have those resources that we can go out, we can research, we can go to the internet, we can go to libraries, we can read about people in the past who have done things a certain way. We can read about our founding fathers. We can read about socialism. We can read about capitalism. We can read about all this different stuff. We can watch videos on it. And we don't have to just take the perspective of the author or the star in the video, right? Or the announcer who's doing the documentary. We don't have to take just that one perspective. We can look at all of them and we can come up with our own decision. So as we think about July 4th, as we in the United States think here about freedom, I think it's most important that we think about the freedom that we have to choose what we're putting in our minds, what we're accepting as truth, and to exercise that freedom of our minds to do our own research and to come up with our own conclusion and to not be led around by the loudest voice in the room or the TV announcer or your friend or the social media influencer you respect. Make your own decision. Make your own decision based on the research that you come up with. So I hope this has helped. I want to hear from you guys in the comments the things that you've actually done research on, right? If you've done research on the Black Lives Matter movement, I want to hear about it. If you've done research on police brutality or about the Democrats versus the Republicans versus, Trump versus Biden, anything about what's happening right now in the US or other parts of the world, I want you to let me know what you've done research on. You, yourself, right? Not just looked at a bunch of memes. And I think in this environment, right, that's so driven by social media, it's so easy to just kind of take up this meme religion, right? And so I want you guys to let me know what you've done research about, what you're passionate about in the comments below. Now, if you like what I'm talking about, if you don't like what I'm talking about, if you agree, don't agree, shoot me a DM, shoot me a comment, let me know what you think, and I'd love to engage with you on this because I think too often we don't think critically, we don't have the discussions around thinking critically, we just throw a bunch of opinions. And it's not based on facts, it's based on memes and blogs and news anchors and different people who their job is to actually influence and persuade us. We need to celebrate our freedom today and every other day during this year and make our own well-informed decisions based on the facts, based on the research that we do, and you can get unbiased information and research by looking at a number of different sources, liberal, conservative, all across the board, to actually formulate your own opinion based on what you truly believe and what you see the facts to be. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope some of this resonated with you. I would love to hear about it. Connect with me on social media and in the comments below, and we will see you in the next video.